Okay, hello. Today we're diving into the deep end of human behaviour. Why? Because asking people to change is like convincing toddlers to share. A noble cause, but often met with sticky resistance. Joining me is someone who's making waves in the world of sustainable innovation, Ruth, the brilliant mind behind the Better Company. We're here to talk about how we're both trying to make better the new normal. I'm Charlotte Morley. I am the founder of The Little Loop. We are an online clothing marketplace, trying to make secondhand as simple as it can possibly be for your kids' clothing. Ruth, could you just introduce yourself briefly, please?
Yes. So hello, thanks for having me. I'm the founder of the Better Company. So we started off with our first kind of hero product, which is the Better Cup, which is a reusable menstrual cup. And now we also make reusable, washable, organic cotton pads, which are for postpartum, period, discharge, incontinence, anything that you might need support for. But yeah, we are an eco period brand, and also our products are all sold on a 1-for-1 donation model. So for every product we sell, we're donating, and our aim is to eradicate period poverty. So just a very small aim.
Just a small aim. Eradicate period poverty, eradicate waste in menstruation.
Yeah.
And I think obviously the tone or the theme of today is around change and inspiring change, but that's really what our businesses are around, isn't it? You're trying to change the world of menstruation and the waste and the poverty around that. We're trying to change waste around children's clothing and also just the way people think about consuming and constant consumption of new stuff that's cheap and disposable. Actually, let's think about it differently. Let's think about buying higher quality items, reselling them, buying them secondhand. But it's challenging, right? Changing behavior is tough.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's so easy, isn't it? It's the better the devil you know mentality, where if you're used to just running to your local supermarket chain and getting some t-shirts for your child that you've realized has outgrown everything that they have, you may be at the point where you know that's not the best choice, but to make the change is so hard because you know what fits them, you know what size they are in that shop, because often I feel like sizes can be so different depending where you go. And yeah, it's just so I totally understand it. It's so tricky to make change. And I think as well a big kind of one of the main ethoses within the Better Company is that the onus shouldn't be on the customer. It should be on the big brands. It's on the company. So our issue is with Tampax. Our issue isn't with the women, anyone that menstruates that's using Tampax. That's not where the issue is. And so we understand that making those changes can be really, really hard, and it shouldn't be guilt driven. It should be because it's actually better for you as well as the planet. Hence the idea behind our name being the Better Company, is we genuinely believe that this change is better for you. And we want to kind of put out of business the brands that are destroying the planet while also not looking after you as their customer. Like what you're putting inside your body is not good for you. In the same way with the fast fashion brands.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say. Shein, Temu, all of those brands which are spewing stuff into the whole models are based around consumption. So they might say, I'm going to introduce circularity. I call bullshit on that, because and until we turn over those companies, the problem is it's so cheap, it's so easy, it's so convenient. People will continue to buy from them, but it's so hard when there is demand for those companies to go away, right? So it's such a chicken and egg difficult situation. And I think we'll go into later, like the challenge of communication and the challenge of making people do that. Stop, think, take 5 minutes, because it actually doesn't take a huge amount of time to change your habits, but we're all running on empty. We're all running too fast. But you're so right about that guilt. It's not about making consumers, parents, people feel guilty about what they do. It's just about trying to help them make better choices in a way that's better for them and for the planet as well. Preaching to the choir. So let's start with the obvious. What made you wake up one day and think, I'm going to dedicate my life to convincing people to change how they do things? And was that all before or after coffee?
So I had been using tampons for years, and I knew one girl at school that used a menstrual cup, and sadly, I wish I could go back now and give her a hug, but we all just thought she was really weird. And, 15, 16-year-old girls, we just all judged her. And then it was my sister who made the change to a menstrual cup, loved it, said it transformed her period. And I remember thinking, even as a grown woman, I remember thinking, oh, she's normal.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, strange silicone bendable cup. And that's what it took for me to finally make the change. I also found that really interesting because I am your target market for those kind of brands. I was already making a lot of changes within our home to use less plastic, and we were already shopping secondhand for our clothes. And so I was surprised, as I looked inwardly, I was surprised that I hadn't been more kind of targeted with ads and things for sustainable period products. And so it really got me thinking about the gap in the market that there is still there. Yes, there's a lot of brands already out there, but it is not the go-to. It's still the alternative option.
Yeah.
So I tried a menstrual cup. It completely transformed my period. It made it shorter. It made it less painful. Just made it so much easier. And I'd always had a bit of a dream of starting my own business. I originally worked as an actress, and you feel very out of control within your job. Everything is someone else's decision whether you get to do a job or not. And so I'd always had a dream of doing something where I was totally in control and I could make it happen if I wanted to. Everything kind of just came together and kind of lined up, where I loved the cup. I realized there was still a kind of a place in the market to maybe bring out my own one. I'd always wanted to start a business. And then also another sister who lives in Zimbabwe, we were talking about the girls there. They tend to miss a week of school every month when they're on their period because they have no adequate period care. And so she'd been saying, what could we do? Like, how could we provide something? It's the exchange rate there is really bad. So sanitary towels, just like disposable sanitary towels, end up costing about $10 and the typical family earn $1 a day. So you can see the kind of percentage of their earnings is just wild to be on sanitary towels. So we had the idea, make menstrual cups, and for everyone we sell, we would donate to her school. And then from there, we've been able to donate to many more places than just her school. But
so incredible.
That's kind of yeah.
Do you know, it's funny because a menstrual cup played a part in my journey to starting the Little Loop, weirdly enough, because I had my first child, and we were absolutely convinced we were going to use cloth nappies. I don't know where it came from, really, because I'd always been quite eco-minded, but never really done that much. I think when you're in your 20s, you're quite selfish, you're doing your own thing. I mean, I'd always recycled and things like that, but I hadn't thought about it. And then I think when you have children, and we'll talk about the science of this a bit later, it gives you a chance to stop and pause and reflect on how you live your life. And so we were like, right, we're going to use cloth nappies. And when my period came back after having my first, we happened to be in Totnes, which I don't know if you've ever been to Totnes, but it's super hippie. It's very green. I loved it. Like, I would never been there before. Everyone's very open-minded and thinks differently. All the shops sell wooden toys and all of this. And I didn't expect my period to come back because you never know, do you? And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And I went into the convenience store in Totnes, which was a health food store. And all they had, well, not all they had, but they had a shelf, and they had menstrual cups. I think they had some period pants, but I wasn't that keen on that because I'd always use tampons. And I was like, well, I'm going to give it a shot. And I remember buying it and buying.
Oh, I've lost you. Oh, I lost you there.
I'm going to start that section again.
Yeah.
So I was kind of faced with this choice, like, do I go and try and find a Tesco and buy some tampons, or do I just take the plunge? And we've been using cloth nappies with Rosa. And I was like, well, I don't feel like I can make her wear cloth nappies and me go back to using disposable products. So we gave it a shot. But like you said, it was this realization that it wasn't just better for the planet, but I found it better. My periods are shorter. It actually got rid of my scar tissue from having her. I don't know what it was, but like And I haven't had period pain since using one. It's just so much better. And I can't explain it. You probably can. But then you're making these changes and you're realizing that they're better. And I think for me, it was like, well, I didn't know. And exactly like you said, I always thought kind of weirdy, beardy, like these things were only for hippie people who dressed in hemp all the time. And I was like, hang on, I'm normal. There are loads of people like me who could be doing these things and finding them as edifying. Because did you use cloth nappies with your children?
We do, yeah. I'm very big on make changes where you can. It's similar to the thing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Everything can feel so intimidating if it's this big, like jump off a cliff into pure cloth nappies and those kind of things. So cloth nappies is something where I just couldn't make it work for us in the night and for naps. So we do cloth nappies in the day, but we do also use disposables as well. And I'm really big on championing that, because I feel like sometimes you can feel almost embarrassed to say, if you're someone where a lot of your audience looks to you for sustainability, or you're in a friendship group where that's kind of the role you play, then sometimes you almost feel like you can't say that you kind of do something half-hearted or
you can't
whatever.
show a flaw, right?
Yeah, exactly. But, we use cloth nappies, but not solely.
Yeah, we did. We got to a point where we used them for nearly everything except when we went on holiday, because of course that's almost impossible. But it took quite a lot of. It is quite hard work, I think. But I think what we found was it brought a lot of joy. As in, this might sound a bit weird, but like every time I put a nappy on my little ones, I'd be like, "Yay, I'm doing something good." And when you're in that very uncontrolled kind of period where you've got a new baby and you don't know what you're doing, and having some control or feel like you're doing some good felt like an amazing thing. And I think a lot of people change their habits when they have children for similar reasons. But you're absolutely right around that. If it feels too difficult, people aren't going to do it. So kind of the next thing we were going to talk about was why habits are so hard to change. And I think that's a really critical point. If something's a massive hurdle, or if it's being kind of portrayed as all or nothing, people aren't going to try it because it feels too scary. Have you found that with the Better Company?
Yeah, I think as well, I try and really keep myself in the mindset that I was before swapping to a menstrual cup, or before making lots of different changes in our home. And because once I know it's easy, it's kind of hard to remember what a big deal it felt like. So I try and really stay in that mindset that I understand my customer is in. And I think a big part as well is, what day do you wake up and think, today I'm going to make this change? You almost think, like, I love that you just saw the cup in the shop, and you almost need just one of those moments just to kind of to go for it. And I often get messages from customers that say, oh, my period's just started, and so there's no point me getting one now, I'm thinking about it, but now I've had my period, I'll just wait until next month and I'll get it then. But then
but then they never do.
It's going to happen again. And I think it's so hard specifically with my product. I do find it hard to give advice, because I never want to sound like a salesperson, but so often the only answer is just buy it. Just do it. Just buy it. That is literally the only first step you can take, because then you'll have it, and then you can have it. I'll have customers that say, oh, I had it sat in my drawer for 3 months, and then I finally gave it a try after talking to the 7th friend that had recommended it, and it just took that last little push. But really, you just have to buy it, and then it's there, and then suddenly just having it in your hands feels a lot less intimidating than this kind of thing that you've seen on the internet. But in terms of changing habits, similar to what you said before, for me, I think one of the most kind of groundbreaking changes was just pausing and thinking every time I did something. So at that point, actually no changes were being made, but every time I went to my bin and I opened it to put something in, I would just pause and I would look at it and I would clock, right, what is this? What did I buy it for? What have we used it for? It's now going in my bin. And that's all I did. I didn't actually change anything. I didn't stop buying anything. I think as well, sustainability can be, there's a real pressure. It can be quite it can feel unattainable, because we live in a consumerist world where we're made to think sustainability has to look really pretty. And so if you want to be sustainable, you need to go and buy all this beautiful glass Tupperware and all these beautiful new wooden toys and all these beautiful high-end small business clothes for your children. And that is not what sustainability is. And so for me, it was just every time I got in my car to drive somewhere, I would just pause and think, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? And I would still drive. Like, no changes were being made at that point. I just was clocking every choice I was making. And then from there, it changed. So quickly with the bin, I was quickly able to notice stuff that we could stop buying that we really didn't need. Or, you know, the kind of obvious things like try and buy vegetables that aren't wrapped in plastic.
It's so powerful. I think that's a really helpful kind of tip for anybody that's thinking, how do I make change? Because it does, a lot of it just comes from stopping and thinking. And you don't have to go and spend a load of money. You don't even have to change anything dramatic or radical. I think, did you find that you were supported in that by your partner? Because I think that's quite an interesting dynamic when it's not just you and you're trying to change, but maybe someone else's brain's not doing the same as yours.
Yeah, that's a really good question. He's wonderful and we're very happy. But I would say it is, if I'm being completely honest, I definitely think I carry a lot of it as my thing. But also a lot of those jobs do fall to me anyway. So I'm doing our weekly food shop.
Sure.
So I have swapped our toilet roll, our washing liquids, our dishwasher tablets, our laundry, all of that I've swapped to what's it called? Like subscription.
Refillables. Oh, right. So
subscription and refillable. So like subscription toilet rolls from great plastic-free brands that are doing great things. And then refillable. So I was kind of carrying that mental load anyway. So I've just kind of quietly made those changes. And he's not at all against it, but he's not necessarily involved.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a similar dynamic, but unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't do the food shop because he likes to do it. And I'm like, great, that's one thing off my plate. But what we've found is because it's my thing, and he's amazing and he supported us through cloth nappies and other things. But when it comes to the food shop, it slips back every single time. And then I end up being a bit of a nag. And I think that's an interesting kind of barrier really to making changes. If you're having not just to change what you do, but also what someone else does. But it's it's also an interesting test of how convincing you can be about what it is that you want to change.
No, he has been great. Like we, started composting and things like that. And I think as well, that's the thing. So much of kind of truly trying to live sustainably, it doesn't need to be that difficult. And I think for him, seeing our little compost caddy that we then take out to the compost bin, it's a very simple job. And then he sees at the bottom, you kind of trowel out soil for our garden. Like you quickly see
a tangible benefit. And I think sometimes, because I think the thought process that you're talking about is absolutely the start of it, but sometimes you also need something quite tangible coming out the end of it. So for example, switching to a menstrual cup, having a shorter period, honestly, like my periods are no longer than 3 days where they used to be 5 or 6 because they tail on, right? That's just like, why would I ever go back? There's a real tangible benefit. And I think buying secondhand clothes, if you actually bother to tot up how much you're spending, you're going to save a lot of money, but you also get the joy of opening that parcel and feeling like, great, I've done something good. And these, so sometimes the changes that have like a tangible result can be easier to stick to because you get that little hit of what is it that we're all addicted to? Dopamine.
Dopamine.
when you do it, when you take the compost out that you've made, you feel reward for it. And I think I certainly find in our house, it's the changes which don't necessarily have that easy kind of buying vegetables in plastic packaging, buying them not. I would do it every time, but if I'm unwrapping the veggies and throwing that thing in the bin, it's me that's feeling, oh God, when I'm throwing plastic away, and he doesn't necessarily notice that it's happened, and therefore, why would you change? So there is a lot of interesting psychology, I think, around making people stick with it. What triggered your thing when you did that, when you started that thought process where you would stop and think about everything you're doing? Was there an event that triggered that? Or did it just happen one day?
Yeah, I think it's just been a really slow process. I'd say I kind of started becoming aware just after my second daughter. So it's about 6-7 years ago was when I started just being remotely aware. I don't know if it just was kind of coming into more of the like social zeitgeist, or I don't know, but that was kind of where I started clocking the effects of fast fashion and how we eat and where our food is flown in from and all those things. I just slowly kind of almost like waking up basically from just like sleeping through life and realizing how I lived was affecting. I don't know if that's also when Instagram was becoming bigger and bigger, and so maybe I was following people that like I follow an amazing girl called Kezia, and she talks so much about treading lightly on the earth, and I always think that's such a lovely image because obviously we talk about our carbon footprint, and I just love the way she talks about treading lightly. And I don't know if that maybe I was kind of started following her around that time and just thinking, okay, how am I treading really hard on this planet, and am I leaving a big imprint of what I've been using and throwing away, and how can I start treading more lightly? And yeah, it's been a very slow process. We've changed, I've tried products that then haven't worked and we've had to revert back to things that I wouldn't agree with for a while. And yeah, it's been a very slow process. I can't think what was the catalyst for stopping and thinking. I think, to be honest, it was probably just feeling really overwhelmed in all the ways you could make changes. And then I think I often feel quite frozen, just because it's in overwhelm. And so thinking, well, let's just see, like, what am I doing? What am I using?
Start somewhere, I guess, right? Yeah. Just kind of having that go. And I do that overwhelm is, I think, probably the biggest factor that I've heard kind of consistently from people. Like, we'll go on to talk about what, talking to our customers and what we hear about making changes to use our businesses, but that feeling of overwhelm, that there's so much I could do, and everyone's telling me it's more expensive, and everyone's telling me it's really hard, so it's easier not to. It's easier just to keep doing what I'm doing. And I think, when we're being bombarded by messages constantly by these huge brands telling us this is okay, overconsumption is fine, everyone else is doing it, look at all these amazing influencers who are doing it, look at these hauls that they're getting and the joy that they get from them. And there's more of that messaging around. And I think you and I are probably similar, and I suspect we've surrounded ourselves a little bit with an echo chamber of sustainability. So when you're on Instagram or whatever channel it is that you're using, I'm hearing those messages all the time as well. I follow you, you make beautiful content, you've been doing loads of great stuff around fast fashion, and I'm like, yes, great, because that's reinforcing my own beliefs and it's making it easier for me to do what I do. But until you step into that sustainable bubble, you're hearing more. There's way more marketing budget coming out of Shein, right? than there is coming out of us. So I think it's totally understandable that people don't do that.
I think it is interesting though, because I think the big brands are listening, but they're then manipulating. So I think a voice is kind of getting loud enough that I think it is becoming acknowledged that we all want to do better, and we want to be sold better things, and we want a sustainable way of living. But the problem is we're at a really awkward place at the moment, and I really hope that brands will get called out, but we're at a place where those brands are telling us they're being better. So Boohoo will have a recycled line, or I don't know if you saw recently an article came out that proved that H&M, which we've all known, well, anyone in my echo chamber has known, H&M's recycling scheme is being shipped scam. Which we knew, but it's so great that it's actually been proved now. They put air tags in the recycling and they've seen where it's ended up.
It's going to Cantamanto, right? So I don't think I've pronounced that correctly, but exactly.
But those brands understand that is what their customers want, and people do want to make these changes, but they also want to make it easily. And so if you're used to shopping with those fast fashion brands, you want to just kind of stay in what you're used to, because we like familiarity and we like our routine. And so you look to H&M and you think, oh great, they're making changes, perfect, I can alleviate my guilt, and I can keep shopping with who I have always shopped with.
I
feel like we're
and there are more and more
we'll get better.
I agree, and I think exactly as you said around, will they be called out? I think we then. The tricky thing is it then steps into this world of legislators and trusting that our government and all of the mechanics around them will actually take some action. And really interesting that the Shein IPO is being considered in Parliament. And I believe, I read something very briefly last night, I've not had a chance to read it properly, but that they are looking into labour exploitation and making sure that if we're going to allow a company to IPO here, we're not effectively onshoring overseas labour exploitation. And hopefully they're going to, because everyone knows that that's what's happening. There have been documentaries and all sorts of things which have proven that's what's happening. So let's hope that the powers that be decide that they're actually going to take some action and not just gloss over it and allow this greenwashing or whatever washing to continue. I agree that we are in an awkward point. But the good news is, as you said, the word is therefore being spread. Even H&M are saying we need to be more mindful. We need to think about recycling.
It's what our customers want. And
you're totally right. So do you speak to your customers? Do you hear from them that they are making these changes and that they want to change?
Yeah. It's funny with my a customer journey within Better Company, because our products are reusable. It's quite funny because we don't really have returning customers that often. Sure. So I'll often talk to people a lot as they're deciding, and they're kind of emailing or sending a direct message on Instagram and asking a few last minute questions, or double checking what's in the product, or double checking where it's made, and kind of people just being cautious, which is brilliant. And I have such joy being able to answer every question, because there is nothing to hide within the brand. Which also, quick side note, as a consumer, I find interesting. I will ask those same questions of brands, and I very much clock who doesn't reply and who kind of avoids talking about where something was made. Or it's very interesting because I know as a brand with nothing to hide that I can answer any question. And so I would really encourage people
you're doing so because you want people to know that you've got nothing to hide.
Yeah, exactly. But I would really encourage you, when you're shopping, just ask a question, like message the brand, because even small businesses, there's quite, with the rise of things like AliExpress and those big Chinese kind of like a mass production type websites, there's quite a rise in small businesses, and we think we really want to support small businesses, but there's a lot of small businesses where all they're actually doing is just reselling.
Even Etsy, right? We think of Etsy as somewhere that's a maker's marketplace, and a lot of people, I've just bought some beautiful little initialed bags for my daughter's party because I didn't want party bags that were disposable. So I put my money into the bag and then filled it with sweets. And it was a lovely maker. And I chatted to her and she was like, I've got the fabric at home. I'll start making them tonight. And I knew she was not just shipping them in from a mass producer in China, but so many people, even on Etsy now, that's what they're doing. So you're so right. You have to just do the little bit of work to
just a little bit of due diligence. And it's hard, but again, I think that just all plays into the thing of like, just pause, just like nothing. We're told to run, don't walk, buy now, it's on offer, and actually just taking a breath and slowing down. And so often that's all it takes. But yeah, sorry, I've forgotten your initial question now. Customers.
So have I. And we were just talking about talking to our customers and what we're hearing about change.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. The customers that have come to Better Company more often than not are kind of on a journey of making changes anyway, because they're at a place where they're thinking about their period. But I really would love to, and I'm trying to reach more people where they have no interest in changing a lot of what they're doing in their life, because I so truly believe it's better for them anyway. It's not that we are the eco brand or the eco alternative. The passion behind it is that this is better for you. This product is not leaving plastic behind inside your body. It's not making your periods more painful. It's much more efficient. Like, there's so much about it that's better. But yeah, I feel like the customers I chat to are kind of on that journey anyway.
Do you find, because we do, that when you feel like there are so many advantages to what you're selling, it's actually harder almost to communicate it? Because we feel like we're quality controlling, quality checking secondhand, these things are, we're only selling good brands. We're trying to curate that, not too tightly, because people do like a range of different things, but we are making it quicker and easy. You can send your clothes back. You've got guarantee. You know, there's so many different things that we feel like we're offering. But it almost makes it harder to educate people about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, totally. I think a bit like what I was saying before, I feel like all I ever want to say is just buy it because I just so truly know it's better. I so truly know that if you use a tampon, you will 100% prefer a menstrual cup. Like there is just, like you just will. Obviously, I totally understand if you don't currently use an internal product, I wouldn't say, oh, you'll definitely prefer a menstrual cup. I understand that, hence our pads. But yeah, no, I totally agree. It's so hard because you're just, I find it really hard because I'm so aware, like in email marketing or on Instagram or wherever, I feel like I just repeat myself the whole time. And when we're putting together a social plan, it's just the same key messaging the whole time. But that is kind of what you need to be doing.
That is what you need to do. Yeah. Especially when you're trying to reach new people, because I find it really easy to forget that although I've seen that message 100 times, they haven't, because when it's the first time they come to your platform, then, you know, and it is trying to kind of keep repeating whilst not boring the people that are passionate followers and that stay with you. But then I think, because we do have a lot of repeat customers. I mean, we have some who are just incredible. They buy from us so almost where I'm like, stop, you're buying too much. you don't need this much stuff. And they're super passionate and really, really great advocates. But as you said, almost you need to focus on those new people, the people that haven't tried it, and trying to make it easier. And this, the kind of education piece is one of the reasons that we've moved away from rental. So I don't know if you know a little bit about our journey. We started as completely as a rental business, and I love and I'm passionate about clothing rental, and it's where we, you know, it's very much our heartland. But we found that journey of change was just too hard. We alone didn't feel like we could. After 3 years of trying, we hit a wall where we're like, without a massive marketing budget, to be able to reach out and really educate people and keep playing that message over and over again and for people to keep hearing it, we can't break through, because we got like our real heartland customers and they loved it and they were passionate and they stayed with us, and some of them have been with us for 4 or 5 years. But it was so hard to get everybody else on board, and we pivoted into secondhand resale and trading and take back. So it's kind of rental in a way. You buy it, you send it back, it out. But it's been so much easier because there's not so much education to do. There isn't so much of a barrier. It's not a subscription. It's not, people don't feel tied into it. And it's been a really interesting journey listening to what people can cope with and what they can't cope with, and what you can change and what you can't change. And just, and even, you know, even now we're tweaking it constantly. And our clear out bags are like the kind of entry level. It's like, even if you don't want to buy secondhand, everyone's got kids' clothes they want to get rid of, and not everyone has the time to sell on vintage. So if you don't have the time to sell on vintage, just give this a try. Exactly. Just take a bag, give it a go. And it's starting to work, right? Because people use it and then they're like, this is easy. Oh, now I've got a bit of credit. I'll buy a bit of secondhand. And we even see the first clear out bag we get from people, they'll tend to put their kind of rubbishy bits in just to see what's going to happen. And then when they get a bit of credit back, they're like, ooh. And then the next bag we get from them will be nicer. And it's that step-by-step journey, give it a shot, see, and kind of get more into it is totally true. It really does work. And it's the only way, I think.
Yeah, I think that's another tricky thing with, so say you were buying a better cup, that's £20. So I think as well, that's a hurdle for people, because they don't know if they're going to like it, and so it's that commitment. So we say it's roughly about, if you used a kind of typical amount of tampons and disposable things, it's about 6 months worth of your period, but it can last you years and years and years. So it's kind of 6 months and then it's just completely free. But I completely understand if someone's then thinking, well, what if I don't get on with it? It's just another hurdle. But it's like, how can you remove a hurdle that's just the cost of your product? And obviously,
you can't give it away for free, can you? Because once you've given it away for free, that's it. They don't need another one, right?
Exactly. It's not like try it and then come back, because if you've tried it, great, you've got it, you're sorted. But I often hope that with the buy one give one, you know, people are thinking, well, it's it's at least something that I've then donated to someone. And we actually do have a customer satisfaction guarantee, so you can actually get your money back, or you can swap for a different size if you've used it for a certain amount of time, because we're so sure that people will get on with it.
Yeah.
But even that, I think it's hard. And I completely understand. It's cost of living, it's everything. It's really tricky. And so if you know your tampons are a couple of pounds, even though you need to keep spending a couple of pounds that month, it's easier to think, oh, I'll just spend a couple of pounds again.
Yeah.
And I'll worry about it. Like, kick the can down the road.
And people don't do the maths, right? It's, I think we
exactly.
have that same conversation. If you keep buying from fast fashion brands or supermarket brands, they won't last as long. They do fade. You'll probably go and buy something else to replace it before your child's outgrown it, actually, because it will have lost its luster, right? It won't be. And if you add up what you're actually spending versus what you'd spend if you bought secondhand, or even, because we advocate for this very strongly, go and buy from the brands that we love. Buy new. You don't have to come buy secondhand from us. Buy from these amazing brands. It might cost a bit more outlay up front, but you'll keep it for longer. It'll have a better resale value. But that maths is quite hard to ask and expect people to do.
Yeah, totally.
Really interesting. So I wanted to ask a little bit about kind of how the toll of this on you, because I think being a leader of change is tiring. It's hard work. It's sometimes it's a bit like standing in front of a bus, being like, no, kind of stop. How have you found that journey for you personally?
Yeah, I do. I feel like it's kind of two separate things. So within the Better Company, I love it. I'm really passionate about it. I think it's quite a specific genre that I'm focused on. So I don't find it too overwhelming. I get a lot more of the positive feedback because I see the customers ordering, and so I feel like I get the payoff. And so although it can sometimes be a long process, and then the customer buys and then you kind of don't see them again. So it's funny because you think for all the work you put in, it'd be nice if it was like a subscription model and I kind of kept them there. But in terms of just the joy of knowing that person has had a better period, I feel like within the Better Company, I have a lot of energy and I really enjoy it. And then the reviews we get and the messages, and I'll get a photo from a customer like at the top of a mountain being like, I never would have been able to do this trek without Buttercup, and like it's amazing. I feel like they feel like we're their friend, and which we are, that we've really been through something quite personal with them. So that's amazing. And then kind of the other side is more within what I share personally on my Instagram, and that journey that I find a lot harder. And I find, because generally trying to live more sustainably is such a broad topic, so I often struggle with kind of what to talk about, how to talk about it, being very aware that I am also on a journey, and there'll be a lot of people that look at me and think, goodness me, she's not doing anywhere near enough. So I being very aware that I'm not kind of coming at it from some sort of expertise. I find it really hard when that a choice was easy to make and is so beneficial. I find it really hard to watch other people not make that choice. But I have to remove myself. That is not my responsibility. Yeah, exactly. I cannot control. I love the sphere of influence concept, and that idea of you can only focus on your sphere of influence. So starting just with you, and then your home, and then maybe kind of the school your children are at, or if you go to a place of worship, like what that is, or your group of friends, and like all these things, that's your sphere of influence. And so I try and really focus on just my sphere of influence so I don't feel overwhelmed. But yeah, I do find it hard, and it's so easy to fall into the mindset when you're washing out your yogurt pots, and then you're thinking about Kylie Jenner on her private jet. Like it's really hard to not compare, to not think it's hopeless. But I always just come back to all I can do is what I can do. And so I just try and really focus on doing what I can do, not making myself feel guilty, but knowing that I can kind of go to bed at night knowing we tried our best today, and we'll keep trying our best again. And I absolutely love the Maya Angelou quote of do what you can till you know better, and then when you know better, do better. And I love that. I probably think about that quote every day. I just love it. I think it's genius, and you can't do better if you didn't know that was an option. And so you can't beat yourself up if there's stuff you've been doing and then you discover how damaging it is. But once you do know, the onus is on you to then make a change. If you know what you're doing is damaging, how could you change it? And again, it doesn't have to be that you then just like stop and run the other way. It's like, do you just make a small change? If it's something you're using, do you just reduce? If you're using bleach in your toilet, okay, fine. Not saying like stop using it, but do you use it a bit less? And then you realize actually you didn't need to use it that much, and then you use it less.
It's a process, isn't it? It's step by step. Yeah,
exactly.
That quote is absolutely beautiful. And I think to build on what you said before about treading more lightly, I'm reading a book at the moment, and one of the characters just asked, what's the point? What's the point of our lives? Like, she gets really hung up on this idea that someone lives life, it's short, they didn't really achieve very much. And I think the only thing that we can do in life is to try to do better for other people and for the planet that we live on. And it doesn't really matter what you achieve, as long as you're not doing any harm, like do no harm ultimately. And if you can try to do better. And if that's the only measure of kind of success and achievement in your life, I think it's an incredible one. Tread lightly, don't damage things. Don't leave the world a worse place. And if you can, leave the world a better place than it was before you came. Otherwise, what is the point? What is the point of someone like Kylie Jenner? Is she adding any benefit to anybody in this world? Maybe if she's helping young girls feel better about themselves, perhaps. But, she might make a lot of money for herself, but really, is she actually, whereas anybody washing out their yogurt pot, doing those little steps, leaving less footprint, making a better change, even if they're tiny little things, at least you can say, you did what was within your power to make the world better. And I think that's what keeps me going, is that feeling that
totally.
When it feels hopeless, when it's a massive slog, when where am I going to pay the wages next month? It's like we're doing the right thing and we're keeping it going. And it's hard, but it's worth it,
Totally.
So that probably brings me on to my last question, which is the future. What's your vision for the future, for the better company, more broadly, the world in general? Do you have a view of like 5 years, 10 years down the line?
I think just generally, I'd love to do more products, and just kind of generally kind of infiltrating into your life the products that I know and use and believe are better, hence the name, for you, as well as being better for the planet, and kind of just slowly making it easier for people to make better choices, that it doesn't have to be this big dramatic shift, but that we're just bringing out products that are reusing materials that are already in the world and reducing what's being made. And just generally, I'd love the brand to grow in terms of reach, but also in terms of what we offer. And I mean, we're still very much a small business. I'm the only person that works on it full time, and then I have freelance help from very wonderful women who branding, marketing, website, all these things that allow me to just kind of swan around trying to make people's periods better. I have some very clever
I don't think it's swanning. It's definitely grafting.
but I definitely would love to be able to have more people kind of more full-time helping me, because I do feel I'm at a point where it is very overwhelming. And I think I am I know this isn't necessarily small business chat, this chat, but I do feel like I'm at a bit of a crossroads where the better company has real potential to grow, and it's at the point where I'm actually the one that's holding it back, because I only
I've been there, and I'm there, like every completely.
It's so like I only have a certain amount of mental capacity, hours in the day. So it's a really weird, I'm at a really weird crossroads. I'm like, is it investment? Is it someone coming along and helping me? Is it, I don't know. So at the moment it's weird, because when I'm asked kind of where do you see the brand, it's quite strange, because it's like it kind of could go, I could just keep it ticking along as is, but the dream would be reach more people, help more periods, but it's how to get there.
And sometimes I think when it's taking that mental energy out of you, you do have to ask the question, or not energy out of you. It's not just mental, it's physical as well. You do have to ask the question, can I keep this going if it's just going to tick along? Because actually it isn't having no impact. It's affecting, it's opportunity cost, isn't it? Like, what else could I be doing with my time? What else could my family be doing if I had more time for them? And I mean, to be like with the Little Loop, it's not even a case of it ticking along, because we're still loss making, because we're trying to grow and we're trying to build tech that makes it easier and all of that kind of thing. So we're exactly the same. I'm still I'm at a crossroads every day. Like, is it going to be here in another month? Like, are we going to have the money to keep it going? Can we grow it to a size where it can break even? And I think until you get to that point, and I don't know if ever you get to a point, I think a business has to be enormous for you to know it's definitely going to survive to the next year.
But I find that really helpful to know as well, because brands like, off the top of my head, I know Uber and Spotify both run at a loss because they're growing so exponentially. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's something that definitely, as small businesses and startups, you can feel like that's a failure, but that is very much the norm. When you're investing back into the business and it's growing, it's normal to be running at a loss.
Completely normal.
But is it moving in the right direction?
That's it. And I used to describe this as a hobby, because I was like, until I pay myself a salary, I don't feel like I can call this a job. Now, 5 years in, I'm employing like 11 people. I'm like, no, this is not a hobby anymore. I might not be paying myself anything, but I am employing other people. So it's not a hobby, but equally, it's so uncomfortable to be running at a loss. It's so uncomfortable, right? And especially in a world where you know, millions of pounds of investment just don't exist anymore, right? We're still kind of bootstrapped. We've got angel investment, and you're at that. And I think that does take a mental toll. It's like, when will I get this to? Can I ever make this a sustainable business?
But I think that's where you have to just, totally. I think that's where it's that, the power of knowing your why and knowing why you do something. And I think that is what I always then come back to, because I know why I'm doing it, and I know who I'm trying to reach and what I'm trying to do. And I just always remind myself of that as well, as why am I doing this? And if you don't know why you're doing it, it's not worth it.
Absolutely not.
It's not worth the slog. But knowing your why is so, it's like the lifeline, really, that keeps
and hearing from customers about the fact that, we've had a couple of pieces of feedback just in this last week. We have a post-purchase survey that says, was there anything that almost stopped you? And someone just said, really simply, no, I love shopping with a Little Loop. And I was like, yes, it's those tiny bits of feedback, and we got a lady,
and it's
with
a real person.
It is a real person who you've not paid. They're not an influencer. There's literally, they have no reason to say anything other than that they just want to give you positive feedback, and that is very buoying. It just makes you feel better. We've chatted for ages, and I love chatting with other small sustainable business owners, because it's quite a lonely journey, isn't it? And I think it's really nice to share what you're going through, and there's so much commonality. But I must let you go at some point. Before we wrap up, quick fire round. One word to describe the change you want to see in the world.
See in the world. Really better.
Better, excellent, good, on brand. The biggest myth about sustainability?
That it's expensive.
Brilliant. And finally, what would your business say to its customers if it was a person?
Oh, we love you. We're here for you. We'll hold your hand. We'll hold your hand through the awkward, because it's an awkward, the first little part of, you buy a dress, you try it on, it's instantly exciting to try it on. The Better Cup is different. It's like the first time being intimate with someone, or it's that first experience that's like a bit clunky to then be great. And so I think
and it might leak a bit to start with, or you might take you a while to get used to the fact that you've got to wash it, but the long term
so I think it's just that, like, you might fold it one way and then realize actually a different fold works better for you. And so it can be a bit of a clunky start to a love affair. So I just would, I always feel like as the brand, we try and talk about, we're here, ask us anything. There's no silly question. There's, I'll get DMs from someone in their bathroom asking a quick question.
That's amazing that they feel that they can do that. That safety you've created around your brand for them to feel that they can do that is incredible. That's amazing. And I mean, if I was to finish this with one thing, I would say, please give Better Company a try, because I honestly, probably my two most life-changing products were cloth nappies, which obviously we don't use anymore, but I loved them, and my menstrual cup. It's been genuinely life-changing. It's so much easier. It took me a bit of time to get used to it. And I think you do have to hang on in there and give it a few goes, but I love it with a passion. And I tell everybody about having one, and people are like, you're a weirdo, but it's brilliant. So everyone should give it a try.
It's such an evangelizing product, isn't it? Because once you love it, it's such like a mind-blowing realization that you're then like, I've got to tell everyone.
And if you love other people, you're like, you need this because it's going to make your life better. Please try it. It really is brilliant. Totally. Ruth, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
So lovely.
And hopefully we'll get to chat again. I think we're going to do some bits on social media around this and some competitions and giveaways. So make sure everybody who's listening follows. I think you have to be following us to have listened to this in the first place. So, but let's